Welcome on into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. So I want to share with you guys what I learned today from the Combine and some of my takeaways from Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot's press conference. So let's start with Kirk Cousins because he was probably the most discussed subject between the two pressers. And the Falcons are still maintaining what I'm going to call a facade that Cousins is going to remain the team's backup quarterback. I don't buy it. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't blame them, though, for trying to maintain this image or this idea that they want to keep Kirk as the backup, because if there is any ounce of trade leverage that they have left, it's going to go out the window the moment they tell everyone, we're probably just going to end up releasing him. Because at that point, who's going to trade for him? They're just going to wait for the Falcons to release him. But I did get an opportunity to ask Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris both a question in their respective press conferences. I asked Terry Fontenot, hey, how comfortable are you with Cousins as the backup and, that mentorship role he could have for Michael Penix? Here's what Fontenot had to say.
Well, look, Kirk handled that really well at the end of the season, and obviously Kirk's he's a really talented player. He's a great man, all those things. So, and again, he handled that role well at the end of the season.
And then later on, I got to ask Raheem Morris, when Kirk Cousins announced at the Super Bowl that he was dealing with a shoulder and an elbow injury during the season, did that catch you by surprise? And you know what? I'll just let you decide and make up your own opinion on Morris's response for yourself. So here it is.
When Kirk Cousins said at the Super Bowl that he played through some shoulder and elbow injury, did that catch you by surprise?
No, I wasn't really as locked into the Super Bowl probably as most. I'm more involved into the game and watching the productivity of it all. But, like for us, those are questions always that you got to ask Kirk. We go through our process every single week of who's on the injury report. We go through our practice and how we practice. We go through our practice with our player development program and our stuff and our measurables, things of that nature. So those are questions you got to ask Kirk.
To be honest with you, I'm not entirely positive that Morris heard or understood my question. I learned a lot from the Combine today. It was my first time coming to Indianapolis for the Combine, and I can understand or sympathize a little bit more with coaches or GMs when it comes to their responses to these questions, because they're such in rapid-fire succession, and you don't always hear the reporters' questions super duper well. It's not like they have a microphone and there's 4 or 5 different coaches talking at once across different podiums. So it gets loud, it gets chaotic. So maybe he didn't really hear me fully because his response doesn't really make a lot of sense with my question. But if he did hear and fully understand my question, I'm not going to lie, it's a little disappointing that he doesn't seem to, I wouldn't say care, but place a lot of, his own personal, emphasis on his ability to self-scout the players and make sure they're healthy when they're on the field, because you say that's a better question to ask Kirk Cousins. Yeah, but it's also a really good question to ask the coach if you knew the quarterback was injured. That seems like something a head coach should know. So those are the 2 questions that I was able to ask those 2, coach GM partnership and the responses I got out of that. Moving on a little bit here. I have made it a point on this channel to reinforce the idea of more is more when it comes to Atlanta pursuing players on defense. And that is definitely something that's been driven home. And I want to expand on that in more detail in just a second. But quick reminder to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We're going to make sure you guys are up to speed on all things for the Dirty Birds this entire week from Indianapolis. So if you're looking for a Falcons YouTube channel that's going to give you the best draft content, combine content, scroll on down and click that subscribe button if you have not already. So, as I was saying, it has been a dead horse that we just keep beating on this channel to go out and add more pass rushers, to add more players on defense. And the Atlanta Falcons have taken our message and has heard it loud and clear, and I have never really seen a reaction like this before. They are only bringing up defensive coaches to the Combine. They are using all 45 of their pre-draft meetings on defensive players. On one hand, this is what I've been asking for. Go get more defense, and if you think you can go get more, don't stop. Whatever you think the bar is, go above it. this is definitely accomplishing what you and I have probably been begging Atlanta to do for a long time, which is more on defense, because you've never been able to, history in the franchise, been able to solve the pass rushing position. But I didn't expect them to go complete defense, and I think they're going to only draft defensive players, which it's probably a little bit of an overcorrection to purely scout defensive players and not even peek at the offensive players, because there are some potential needs on offense for this team. What happens if Drew Dahlman leaves in free agency? I think there's a real possibility in April you might wish you sat down with a couple of centers in Indianapolis if you're looking for a new starting center. What happens if you end up dealing Kyle Pitts away, which we'll talk about later on as well? Maybe you wish you looked at some of the tight ends. It's a very deep tight end draft class. Does Atlanta need a receiver, a running back, or a tackle? No, I don't think so, but I don't think it's a bad idea for them to peek at tackles. Jake Matthews is not getting any younger. McGarry's entering the last year of his contract, and he's protecting Michael Penix's blind side as a run-blocking tackle. So you can make arguments for a couple spots on offense that should probably warrant a little bit of research from that side of the football. Maybe it was a little tongue-in-cheek from Atlanta, but I didn't take it that way. I think they are going to go full defense. Wasn't there a team a few years ago in the draft? I think it was either Miami or I think it might have been Seattle that only drafted defensive players. It was like a new head coach, and he used his first 4 or 5 draft picks only on defensive players. So this is not the first time we've seen a team like this make a dramatic correction to a weak side of the football, but this would definitely be, one of one when it comes to all 45 invites, pre-draft invites to prospects going purely to defense. Speaking of defense, Terry Fontenot also talked about Grady Jarrett, which I want to share with you in a moment. But really quickly, over at Fanatics, there's still some awesome deals going on. So if you want to get some Falcons gear to rep your favorite squad during the spring months coming up and then into the summer, 50% off right now, chatsports.com/Falcons50. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. We talked about Grady Jarrett and Onyemata a few weeks ago on the channel, and my prediction was 1 or 2 of them will be returning, but neither will be returning for their current cap hit or salary. So my suspicion is Atlanta will approach Jarrett first and say, listen, this is what we are comfortable paying you given your age and somewhat recent ACL injury and a little bit of a dip in production in 2024. Kind of take it or leave it. You might be able to find a little bit more or the same elsewhere in free agency, but do you really want to pack up and move after all this time you've spent here in Atlanta? At that stage of his career, a lot of veterans will prefer just to stay put and take the pay cut. So I'm guessing a Grady Jarrett restructure happens. It's not a restructure. It's going to be a pay cut. And the same may follow suit with Onyemata because while Jarrett's a much more iconic player on this team, Onyemata is, I'd say right now, maybe a better player, just the way he played in 2024, and he really serves that interior defensive line role quite nicely, gapping and filling up the run. So there's the latest on the untouchable Grady Jarrett and his future in Atlanta. That's going to do it for us on today's home edition from the NFL Combine. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. If you do, make sure to scroll on down and click that subscribe button so you do not miss a single thing on your favorite team all week long from the NFL Combine.